topic we've been talking about. Watch.
We regard this as an investigation which could become a clear criminal investigation. And we are pursuing this with all the dispatch and care that's appropriate, relying on the expertise of the Centers for Disease Control and health authorities.
Everything you know is a lie. Everything you do, they see. Everything you fear is true. Robert Ludlum, The Prometheus Deception. Suspense at the speed of thought. It's not what you think.
There are plenty of websites to visit. May we suggest America's healthiest? Walgreens.com. Now you can schedule emails to remind you when your prescriptions need to be filled. Get your prescription history. Click prescriptions for easy refills and get emails when your prescriptions are ready. If only the weather were this reliable. Register online or come into Walgreens Pharmacy and we'll do it for you. Walgreens.com.
The critics are calling The Mind of the Married Man outrageously funny.
You're a loser. You can't even make your wife happy.
Embarrassingly truthful.
If I fired everybody here I wanted to diddle, it'd be just you and I left.
And smartly written.
I think that you are very, very talented.
You do. Catch an encore play of the first 3 episodes back to back. Don't miss the show that's destined to be a married man. The first 3 episodes back to back on HBO.
America Strikes Back as Operation Enduring Freedom continues. We'll take you live to Afghanistan and the region for the latest images. Join Aaron Brown for a CNN special report. Tonight at 10 Eastern, depend on CNN.
What you're seeing on your screen is the latest pictures we have of the latest strike in Afghanistan occurring a little while ago this evening. Joining us now in Washington is Colonel Randy Larson, United States Air Force retired. He's director of the Answer Institute for Homeland Security, a nonprofit public research institute. Formerly served as chairman of the Department of Military Strategy and Operations at the National War College, as he has briefed Vice President Cheney and key members of Congress and the military. Colonel Larson, how concerned are you about this anthrax story?
Well, this is clearly a troubling story. I've been looking at biological warfare for 7 years, and this is the day I have not been looking forward to. But we have to keep this in perspective. First of all, this seems to be a very low-tech sort of an attack. If it is attack, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I just don't think there's any chance this could be naturally occurring. It's low-tech. This is not a Tom Clancy type scenario. Mm-hmm. It is treatable with antibiotics. It is not contagious. It does not pass from human to human. And the most important thing is it has been detected early, and that's the most important thing we've learned about biological warfare is early detection.
How concerned should we be as a country, should mothers and parents and children be, about this threat?
We're in a war right now, Larry. We are in a serious war with an evil enemy. I think biological attacks are some of the least likely attacks, particularly, like I say, the Tom Clancy scenario. We may see some small-scale attacks like this. The most likely thing we're going to see are like car bombs and those sorts of conventional attacks. Biological warfare is possible. We need to understand that in the 21st century, but it's also still very difficult to do. Even if you can manufacture it, you still have to deliver it, and that is a challenge. The good news is we've had some incredible people in this country working on this for several years, like Dr. Scott Lillibridge right now, who I'm sure has been going 24/7 for quite a few days right now. And other folks like Dr. Bob Cadillac, who handles BW programs at the Pentagon. These folks have been working on this for years, and we are much better prepared for this today than we were 2 years ago, far better prepared than we were just 3 months ago.
Colonel, if forewarned is forearmed, would it be a good idea to have a supply of antibiotics on hand, to have a gas mask? How could it hurt?
You know, 2 weeks ago when I got the question about the gas mask, I said, oh, don't waste your time. I've changed my tone a little bit, Larry. I said, look, if it will lower your blood pressure, it will make you sleep better at night, go ahead and buy a gas mask. But understand, you need to wear it 24 hours a day. There is no indication about when there is a biological attack. It's not like an explosion or a chemical attack where people are going to fall down in the street. So there are some folks during flu season in Japan, they walk around with little gauze masks, and I'm sure there's some psychological benefit there, maybe some medical benefit. But if you really want to feel better about yourself and you want to help America, instead of spending money on a gas mask, give that money to the USO to help take care of our troops out there fighting the war tonight and their families back at home.
Now, the Answer Institute which you are director. It's the Institute for Homeland Security. It's a nonprofit public research. You can get it on the net at homelandsecurity.org. What does it do?
Well, we've been around for about 2 years, Larry. We've been very concerned about the national security equation has changed. Small states and some non-state actors, as we saw on the 11th of September, can bring enormous damage, enormous threats to the United States. Right now, our national security apparatus is designed on the National Security Act of 1947. That was a pretty good model for the Cold War. I'm not sure that's what we need for the 21st century. I'm very encouraged with the developments we had today. Governor Ridge was the right man for this job. Now we have to make sure. Beg your pardon?
Because?
Oh, several reasons. First of all, he's very good friends with President Bush. I know he's going to have the president's ears. If he gets frustrated by bureaucratic roadblocks, he's going to call the president. Second of all, he's a governor. For most of our history of this nation, we have looked directly to the federal government for national security. In the 21st century, that national security is going to require a partnership of federal, state, county, and municipal governments. He's a governor. He knows these sorts of things. This is primarily a state response going on in Florida. What happened in New York City on the 11th of September? That was a state response. So this is a new environment. We need new structures, new organizational structures here to respond to this security threat.
By the way, are there elements worse than anthrax?
Sure. We did an exercise called Dark Winter that's received a lot of publicity. That's an exercise we did with Senator Sam Nunn and former CIA Director Jim Woolsey back in June. People hear about that and it's caused some concern in town. They need to understand that is a very unlikely scenario. The chance of a smallpox attack are virtually nil. We chose that as a model so that we could stress the system between the federal and state government to see how we could learn to respond. The most likely sorts of things are like anthrax or plague or tularemia, and they are all treatable with antibiotics. The most important thing is early detection, and that's why citizens need to be alert. And one thing I'd like to say, a lot of people ask me, what can I do, Colonel Larson? What can I do as a private citizen? One thing is, if I lived in the Florida area tonight around this location and I had a pet or animal die in the last couple of weeks, I would report that. That's something we learned during the West Nile virus episode, is that crows were dying and falling in the street and no one reported them. We learned a good lesson from that. Animals are good sentinels. Dr. Tracy McNamara at the Bronx Zoo really broke the story on West Nile virus. She's a real hero in that story.
Colonel Lawson will remain with us and will be joined by Larry Johnson, who was with us last night, our terrorism expert and former CIA officer. You're watching Larry King Live. Lots more to come. Don't go away.
Together we will confront the threat of terrorism. We will take strong precautions aimed at preventing terrorist attacks and prepare to respond effectively if they might come again. We will defend our country, and while we do so, we will not sacrifice the freedoms that make our land unique.
Oh, hey, Mr. Jones.
Hi, Tony.
Are you working late tonight?
Yeah, I'm applying for a new home loan to refinance my house.
Are you talking to ditech.com?
I'm online with them right now.
Want to cash out some of your equity or consolidate bills? You may be able to refinance now to a low fixed rate with 0 points.
Well, I'm all pre-approved.
Really? Wow, that's great, Mr. Jones.
Apply online or call now, 1-800-71-FIXED.
Passion for journalism, compassion for the story. Start your news day with Paula Zahn. Another reason why you can depend on CNN.
Tired of crawling around on your knees or doing endless sit-ups? Introducing the revolutionary Ab Energizer system, featuring 21st century technology that's a simple, easy way to help firm and tone your abs without breaking a sweat. And it's also great for your lower back, buns, and thighs. The secret is Ab Energizer's electronic impulses that stimulate your abs so they contract and relax as if you're doing a sit-up. Now you can get up to 700 muscle contractions in just 10 minutes and get the tone and definition you've always wanted.
I've gone from a waist 37 to a waist 34.
Work out your abs anywhere, watching TV, at the office, even around the house. Why spend $120 for a single unit product? With the double unit Ab Energizer, you get 2 modes and 10 settings to maximize your workout. For just 2 easy payments of only $29.95, your complete system includes the Ab Energizer belt with 2 units, tightening gel, meal plan, instruction guide, and carrying case. You also get a free 30-day supply of Diet Energizer with its fat-burning formula. If you don't lose at least 2 inches off your waist in the first 30 days, return it for a full refund. To order, call now.
This is CNN.
Colonel Randy Larson remains with us. We're joined now by Larry Johnson, terrorism expert and former CIA officer. Larry, what's your read on this anthrax story in Florida?
Well, let's just assume for a moment, Larry, that it's the worst case, that it is terrorism. What do we see? We see that you only have one dead, you have one who's been discovered, and in the last hour you've had more people die in automobile accidents. So I think Colonel Larson was exactly dead on. We need to put it in the context because the public health system now is up on its toes and very alert and very responsive. And one of the things we do have in this country, despite concerns in the past about health care, is very competent, capable people that when you give them a target to go after, they're very thorough.
What is bin Laden's capabilities in this area, Larry?
Very limited. He would have to basically get it from someone else. The countries in the region that have it, Iraq probably still has it, Iran, or he'd have to buy it from the Russians or the Chinese. And I think really Russians and Chinese have been very remiss to sell it. So it's not the kind of thing that a devilish Betty Crocker can do by putting on an apron and whipping it up in the garage. It just doesn't happen that way.
What is, before we take a call or two, we'll ask Colonel Larson and then you, the greatest vulnerability in terms of homeland defense, Colonel?
Oh, I think that the greatest vulnerability is the traditional terrorist attack using car bombs, truck bombs, suicide bomber with dynamite around him. That's why folks need to be very alert right now. I tell people, don't be panicky, don't even be overly nervous, but be alert. It's like we used to teach our troops in Vietnam. Stay alert, stay alive. If you're in an airport terminal, you're a shopping mall, you see somebody set down a briefcase and quickly walk away, grab a security officer, grab a police officer. Stay alert.
Would you agree, Larry?
I would take a slightly different tack. I think our biggest threat comes, we've got so many different agencies and organizations of well-meaning people, but the way to share the information between them sometimes gets bogged down in bureaucracy. I think once we can start breaking those walls down, people are going to feel a little more certain and confident that the government, look, the government's not sitting here right now like a sleepy Maytag repairman. They're out there, they're alert, and we need to harness all of those capabilities together because from the first responders up through the federal level, you've got a lot of very good, hardworking, well-intentioned folks.
Let's take a call. St. Augustine, Florida, for Colonel Randy Larson and Larry Johnson. Hello.
Hi, hello. Yeah, my question was, we heard these anthrax spores were found in a newspaper printing office in Florida. What are the odds that these kind of spores could now be being printed along with our issue of the National Enquirer and distributed
Colonel Larson, could someone tomorrow buy a paper and pick up anthrax?
No, that's not a problem. The Army has done a tremendous amount of research on what he's talking about as a technical term called secondary aerosolization, and it's just not a highly likely thing. The simple forms of anthrax, which we would expect an organization like Osama bin Laden to have, would be a liquid slurry, which is very difficult to dispense. It's like Aum Shinrikyo tried and failed, frankly, and they had $1 billion or whatever. Okay, a dry powder, which is something you expect to maybe get some from a former Soviet program or whatever, but that still can't be put into newspapers or like that. It has to be sprayed in the air and you breathe it in.
Prior Lake, Minnesota, hello. Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Turn your TV down and go.
Okay. Yeah, I had a question regarding the crop duster.
Yeah.
The crop dusters. When they fly, if these guys were going to take the crop dusters, what do you think they would have put in there?
Larry?
It'd be a wild guess. I'd go more for a chemical than a biological agent. Chlorine's more readily accessible and can be just as damaging as a chemical agent. But I think, again, people need... It's understandable that you fear the unknown, and it's natural, but you need to take a big, deep breath and a step back because the federal government and state and local governments, they're paying attention to this now, and we don't have to worry so much in a heightened state of vigilance. I'm concerned when 10 months or a year and a half from now, when nothing's happened, and we sit back and say, oh, there's no threat, so let's forget about it. Then we have to worry.
Yeah. St. Catharines, Ontario. You do? Good. Well said. St. Catharines, Ontario. Hello.
Hello there.
Hi.
Yeah, just wondering, the Taliban are known for their illicit drug trade and not government regulated. I'm just wondering whether they can put biological weapons in the drug trade, like for people to inhale and use.
Colonel?
I don't think that's a very likely scenario at all about putting into the drug trade. I haven't heard of that, hadn't thought about a way that you would do that to have an effective delivery system.
Larry, are we overblowing this? Is the media giving it too much attention?
Well, I think, listen, if you could identify, there's been one person that's died from anthrax. I'd like to know the number of people that have died from asthma attacks and heart attacks brought on by the media reports. I mean, candidly, I think it's important that the media report it and report it accurately. And as you're doing tonight, you're having a very balanced discussion and hearing from a lot of voices. But we shouldn't make people think that it's the boogeyman that's going to jump up and get them. There are enough other things in the world to be afraid about without going overboard.
Tifton, Georgia, hello.
Hello. Larry, my question is, how long will the spores live, and can they be removed from the building?
Colonel?
And that's one of the problems. When the British tested anthrax weapons back in 1942, it took them about 40 years to clean up that island called Gruinard off the coast of Scotland. That is why anthrax is considered one of the best biological weapons Mother Nature's produced, because that is the one that is very durable.
Colonel Ridge and Larry Johnson, Colonel Larson and Larry Johnson, thank you very much. We'll be calling on both of you again. Very informative portion. As we go to break, before we meet Senator Richard Shelby and Congresswoman Jane Harman, still to come Walter Cronkite and Bob Woodward, here's a portion of what Tom Ridge had to say today at his swearing-in.
There may be gaps in the system. The job of the Office of Homeland Security will be to identify those gaps and work to close them. The size and scope of this challenge are immense. The President's executive order states that we must detect, prepare for, prevent, protect against, respond to, and recover from terrorist attacks. An extraordinary mission, but we will carry it out.
If you're going to convince Gary to stop the execution, now's your only chance.
Why does he want to die, Michael?
Mr. Gilmore! I am here to help my mother and maybe try to save my brother's life.
Save it or interfere.
He scares me.
Gary scares us all.
Now's the best time to join America Online.
If I knew it was this easy, I would have started a long time ago.
Because now you can try AOL and get our best offer ever. 1,000 hours of AOL free for 45 days. Plug it in and you go. You don't need a credit card to join AOL. Call 1-877-265-0100 and be online in minutes.
America Online is the easy one.
Our free 24-hour customer service representatives are always available by phone.
Customer service is always there to help.
1,000 hours for 45 days free. Call 1-877-265-0100 to get everything AOL offers.
You've got mail.
I've got mail. I love when an instant message pops up.
AOL has parental controls,
And that's a good thing.
Chat, instant messages, email.
AOL has it all.
Now you can join AOL right over the phone. You don't even need a credit card.
fire up the computer and off you go.
Get online in minutes. Our operators are standing by.
If we could do it, anyone can.
America Online, so easy to use, no wonder it's #1. Call 1-877-265-0100 for AOL's best offer ever.
We now welcome two distinguished members of the Congress joining us from Washington. Senator Richard Shelby is a Republican of Alabama and is Vice Chairman of Select Intelligence Committee, and Congresswoman Jane Harman, Democrat of California, is a member of the Select Intelligence Committee and a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Terrorism and Homeland Security. Senator Shelby, are you concerned about this anthrax thing?
Absolutely. I think we should leave no stone unturned till we get to the bottom of this. I believe between the FBI and the Center for Disease Control, they can do it, and the sooner the better, because it will make a lot of people in America probably get to the point of panic, and we don't want to do this. But we need to find out where it came from and what the solution is to it now.
Congresswoman, how do you balance that fear with trying to live ordinary lives?
There's no option, Larry. We are alive, and if we hide under our beds, we become what the terrorists would hope to make us, which is we end our style of life as we know it, and I'm against that. Let me just say about this attack, though. There could be another one tomorrow. There could be something else on Thursday. This may be the beginning of a second wave of attacks, and rather than careen from one attack to the next, I think it is imperative that we give Governor Ridge real authority starting tomorrow, if we can pass a law tomorrow, but certainly this week, so that he can force all of the agencies of the federal government, and I mean force, to comply with a national strategy plan that he needs to develop as quickly as possible, so that we understand, we Americans understand where our real threats are, how we're going to respond, how we're going to preempt, protect, et cetera, and
Senator?
I don't think we're getting there.
I believe what Congresswoman Harman's talking about makes a lot of sense. I believe myself that some of us need to talk to Tom Ridge, Governor Ridge, and let him find out what he needs, and we should give him the tools to do the job. I believe myself that he's going to need statutory authority. He's going to have a lot of power, a lot more power than he can get by an executive order.
Are you concerned, both of you, about the assessment of whether we're ready or not, whether the United States is ready for biological warfare? Jane?
Well, I think some parts of our country are ready. I come from Los Angeles County, as you know, Larry, and we have a very good terrorist early warning group there, and we have substantial public health capacity and a very good responder network that can identify these kinds of threats. Is the whole country ready yet? I don't think so. Should we be doing things like perhaps putting sensors in new buildings? That's the recommendation of Judith Miller in her new book, Germs. Maybe we should, but again, consistent with a new threat assessment, the one we have is 4 years old, and a strategy that builds off that threat assessment so that we're spending our dollars wisely and every agency of government is on the same page.
Larry, how prepared are we?
I don't think we're that prepared, but we can get better prepared. We have, for example, what we call the First Responders Program, where we're training people to deal with, under the Justice Department auspices, to deal with chemical and biological warfare. But we haven't done enough. As a matter of fact, we were able to double the budget this year, and I think we ought to look at it even for more, because now we realize finally that the threat of chemical and biological warfare is really real.
And where's all the money coming from?
Well, Congress is spending a lot of money these days, Larry, as you've noticed. We've got $40 billion as a response to the horror of New York and the Pentagon, and a lot of that money could go perhaps to Alabama, where that training facility is that Senator Shelby mentioned, but it also needs to go into breakthrough drugs, into ways to recognize new chemical and biological agents, into new technologies. I'm for spending at least $1 billion or more additional on some of these issues.
Larry, what we have to do is do what we've got to do now to prepare, and also to prepare the American people and prepare our people everywhere to deal with any threats that we have. This is a different type of war. It's not going to be cheap, it's not going to be short, but it's one we have to win.
Knowing about red tape, Senator Shelby, do you think Ridge can put all these things together? Can information clear easily?
Oh, well, that's going to be a problem, Larry. You raised something very central. I think we've got to knock down a lot of the regulations, perhaps some of the laws dealing with stovepiping information. The Congresswoman and I both serve on the intelligence committees. We know and we've seen this and seen the impediments. Governor Ridge is a very able man. I served in the House with him. I know him. He had a great career as a governor. He's got an awesome responsibility. What we should do is give him the tools, whatever it takes, for Homeland Defense.
Let me add to that, Larry. I worked in a White House. I worked in the Carter White House. I understand the turf battles that are endemic to the place. Governor Ridge said today in his press conference, the only turf we should be worried about protecting is the turf we stand on. Lofty ideal won't happen. He needs tools now because all the other cabinet secretaries who've been in place for 9 months are protecting their turf this evening, and tomorrow when he shows up for work, he may have less turf than he had today.
The president's expressed concern over congressional leaks. Senator Shelby, what do you make of that? That means people in your bailiwick and on the other side of the ellipse there in Washington are spreading rumors or giving information out.
Well, we've had a problem with leaks. I have been one to push legislation, as you know, to try to come up with some other criminal penalty to tighten the laws on leaks. Leaks have people killed. They destroy programs. And I believe that they need to tighten up. And we need to do something about people who really leak, because they're going to have our people killed.
Versailles, Kentucky. Hello.
Hi. I'm not afraid of what I have been informed of, but what I am afraid of is what I have not been informed of. Hearing possibly that the World Trade Center, that we knew that there was going to be a terroristic threat amongst the United States, and had the people at the World Trade Center known that, they would have not told them it was safe to go back to work. They would have said evacuate the building had they known that there had been this possible threat made against the United States.
Well, the question is, should we have known, Senator Shelby?
Well, we didn't know, and if we did know, and if we didn't heed the warnings, then we've got problems. But we have had too many intelligence failures. The last one was the big one, but we've had some. I've talked about it on this show, and I don't believe we can stand another one.
We've also had some intelligence successes, Larry. The Millennium threat didn't materialize. I'm not excusing any failures that occurred on September 11, but it's a tough line of work, the hardest target there is.
Okay, Senator, do you, by the way, do you, both of you, do you have a gas mask, Senator Shelby?
I don't have a gas mask. I believe that everything is going to be all right at the end of the day if we stay alert. I might be wrong, but I'm not going to panic. I'm going to fly. I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to go to the stores, and I'm going to go to wherever I need to go, because otherwise, if we hunker down and we hide, the terrorists win.
You bet.
What do you make of this, the feds asking Hollywood for terrorist scenarios, Congresswoman? At the behest of the Army, an ad hoc group of top Hollywood filmmakers and writers convened at the University of Southern California to brainstorm about possible anti-terrorist schemes. Is that a little science fiction or a good idea?
No, I think it's a good idea. These are folks who think about this all the time. Everyone invokes Tom Clancy. He thought of a lot of this before others of us did. But again, I think we need a national strategy. We can't ad hoc this anymore. We're going to careen from one threat to another threat, and the critical thing is that Governor Ridge be given power this week to reject agency budgets inconsistent with a national strategy, and he finally compels this government to be integrated and coordinated in the way that it prevents and deals with terrorist threats and attacks.
We'll be right
Larry,
back. Senator, hold on one second. We'll be right back. Let's take this quick break. Don't go away.
Scott Kazmarowski from Huntsville, Alabama asks, what regulatory changes will be enacted at flight schools?
Well, Scott, I'm a commercial multi-engine instrument pilot myself. I appreciate your question about general aviation. We need to know who's in these airplanes, because a weapon of mass destruction, chemical or biological, could be disseminated and dispersed over a wide area from a light aircraft. The FAA does not want to see that happen. They've got to be ready not just for the last threat, what we saw in New York and Washington, but for the next threat. And we all know that the specter of chemical and biological weapons are out there. We've got to be able to defeat that. So I think it's a prudent policy for the FAA at the moment to require flight plans, to make sure they know who is in the airplane. It's going to make it more difficult for people to get a pilot's license. And then there's that gray area. Right now, when you get a pilot's license, they do a background check, feel pretty comfortable about who you are. But that gray area between the time where you are a student pilot and then you're out there soloing for 10 or 15 hours or more on your own, normally there's no background check done to cover that time frame. I think that's about to change.
Ask CNN is brought to you by Sir Speedy Printing Copying Digital Network. For outstanding document solution and the center near you, visit sirspeedy.com.
Business.
E-business.
Sir Speedy Printing.
sirspeedy.com.
Face-to-face.
Online interface.
Personal.
Productive.
Local.
Global.
Very human.
Very modern.
Easy.
Easy.
Sir Speedy.
Either way.
The American way of life is energy in motion. Energy powers our lives and fuels the technologies that make America go. Williams is proud to help deliver that energy through more miles of pipeline than the interstate highway system including a fifth of the nation's natural gas. At Williams, our way of life is leading energy solutions.
Before we talk with Bob Woodward, Senator Shelby, are you telling the public, don't be wary, but don't be too wary?
That would be good, Larry. Be alert. Be aware of possible attacks, but don't panic and don't hide. And if we do this, we can rebuild our confidence, we can rebuild America, and we can win this war.
Congresswoman, are you saying the same thing?
I'm saying the same thing, and I'm also saying to all the kids out there, your parents are concerned for you, but we will assure you that you have the opportunities in your life that we had in ours, and this will be a safer country once we get this threat assessment and national strategy in place and people aware of what we're planning to do.
Thank you, Senator Richard Shelby. Congresswoman Jane Harman. Joining us now from Washington, my friend Bob Woodward, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, best-selling author, assistant managing editor of the Washington Post. Where are we now? The stories seem to be breaking every day. You've broken quite a few in this. We're under it. We're attacking. We've got Anthrax. How do we centralize this, Robert?
Well, I think there are a couple. At least there's one known that's comforting in all of this. Going back 10 years when the first Bush was president, during the Gulf War, I wrote a book about that and went and looked at all of the public statements then President Bush made about what he was doing in the build-up to that war and during that war. And it turned out, even though people thought a lot of it was just rhetoric, he was saying what he was doing. I have found in the first month of the new President Bush, if you look and listen to what he says, he's being quite candid based on the information we have. He said this is going to be a long war. It's sustained. It's going to we're going to keep it going. It's going to have many parts. And so I think, in a way, the first guide on this, oddly enough, is what the president is saying.
You have a co-written story on the front page today of the Washington Post that intelligence officials are warning Congress there is a 100% chance of retaliation to this military action.
That was a couple of days ago, and that's what some of the officials said in answer to a question. I think the position of the intelligence community is that there's a very high probability that there will be some sort of retaliation, something will happen. The problem in all of this, I don't know that you watched and read the translation of what bin Laden said after the attacks. The more I read that, the more I'm confused, quite frankly. There's a lot. Well, because what are his goals? What exactly does he want? Is it that he wants the United States not to support Israel? He wants the United States out of Saudi Arabia because somehow the infidels are contaminating the holy sites at Mecca and Medina? Is that what it's about? I'm not sure. Does he want to destroy the United States? Does he want to convert the whole world to Islam? What are his capabilities? There are, as we know, some of these bin Laden Al-Qaeda cells in the United States. Are they sleeper cells like those that were used in the September 11th attacks? We just don't know. And so the first thing that's got to be done, and I think this is kind of the uncomforting unknown, what is the other side? What do they really want? What could they do? And I think we have very little information on that that's really good.
And what about, Bob, what does the journalist do? The president is angry about leaks from classified briefings, so he's limited the number of Congress people who will get those briefs. When you get a leak, how do you measure what I should print or not?
Whether it informs people, if it's going to get somebody killed, if it's going to disclose intelligence sources, we don't print it. There was an incident where we had something in a story that I had picked up, and one of the senior officials in the government called the managing editor at the Post, Steve Call, and said, I'm going to make a national security argument that you not print this. He gave the reasons, everyone agreed, and it was not published. I think in a time of war, that is the norm, if not the absolute rule for most journalists.
Let's take a call for Bob Woodward, South Plains, New Jersey. Hello.
Hi. I have a real problem with actually the media reporting on Osama bin Laden, playing his cruel speeches to America, and possibly giving hints of further destruction from his counterparts here in America.
What is the problem you have with it?
Pardon?
What is the problem you have with it?
I think that we're playing into his hands. I don't think that a man like this should be given airtime. I think basically maybe the media could report that he made a tape and he's happy that he destroyed Americans, and that's about it. But
Bob,
to
what do
give
you
him
make
all
of
of this airtime seems to be honoring him.
Bob?
Well, as a number of historians would point out, that we should have read Hitler's Mein Kampf much more carefully, because then you find out what he's up to and what the philosophy is behind it and how far he was willing to go to achieve his ends. And the idea that somehow by giving, and I'm sorry I smiled at that, but giving bin Laden airtime, I mean, he is not somebody who's running for public office. We need to understand him. And I kept reading that statement, the translation of it, going over it again and again, looking at the tape, because quite frankly, I think there's much we don't comprehend in all of this.
Springville, Utah, hello.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, Mr. King, how are you?
Fine. What's the question?
Question is, I'd like to know what the situation is here that we're going into this extreme terrorist move to send all the 50,000 soldiers into a strange world that should have been cleaned up in the Iraqi part back in '91.
What's
with,
the question?
Papa George.
What's the question?
Sir?
What's the question?
The question is, I'd like to know why that wasn't done.
Oh, we're going back to that. Why wasn't that done?
Well, in the Gulf War, it was a UN operation, and the UN resolution simply said that we get the Iraqis out of Kuwait and the mission is accomplished. The mission was not to destroy Saddam Hussein. He had invaded Kuwait. There's much debate about it. There are a lot of people saying, gee, they wish the first President Bush had done more. But given the limitations under the UN resolution, they achieved what they set out to do, and to somehow extend it and say this is a dangerous person, we're going to go and stomp him out. A lot of people in the UN would not have supported that at the time.
What do you make of the Anthrax story, Bob?
Can't tell yet. As somebody said, if it was some sort of terrorist attack on the scale of what happened September 11th, it would have spread much more. It would not have been just directed at one building and a few people, and that now appears to be the case. But again, you never can tell. You have to follow every lead in this, what has happened to the world we live in. The threshold for dealing with the inconceivable, the truly inconceivable, has been extended, and so anything is possible, and you have to look real hard.
How would you describe yourself? Are you, Bob Woodward, very worried?
Yes, because you can lay out a scenario. If you make the most pessimistic interpretation of what these people want to do, they are going to sequence a series of other terrorist attacks that probably will take different forms, have different delivery mechanisms to bring about some form of chaos in this country. Clearly, and this is the horror of September 11th, they have the capacity to do that. They know how to leverage the freedoms in this country against us. You have to be concerned about whether there are groups of people sitting around motels, watching football games, who have programmed themselves for something on a given date. It's totally a different environment. And so instead of being frightened or fearful, I think you have to be very creative and imaginative and try to figure it out. It's the toughest case. I look back at Watergate and say, in a sense, that was very easy compared to this. This is a stumper.
Well, thanks, Bob. We'll be calling on you again. Bob Woodward, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and best-selling author of The Washington Post. And when we come back, we're going to spend the remaining moments with the dean of all of this, maybe some comfort and some opinions on how we're handling it. Walter Cronkite is next. Don't go away.
Buying a carpet deep cleaner can be confusing. You may think they have steam or heat the water, but in fact they don't. Presenting the Bissell Pro Heat, the only upright deep cleaner with a built-in heater, which makes the hot tap water up to 25 degrees hotter, so it cleans better than all its competitors. Bissell, we mean clean. Get the improved cleaning power of real heat in a handy portable. The Bissell Little Green Pro Heat.
You're watching Larry King Live. Next, a deeper look at the day's events on Special Report with Aaron Brown, only on CNN.
Tired of crawling around on your knees or doing endless sit-ups? Introducing the revolutionary Ab Energizer system, featuring 21st century technology that's a simple, easy way to help firm and tone your abs without breaking a sweat. And it's also great for your lower back, buns, and thighs. The secret is Ab Energizer's electronic impulses that stimulate your abs so they contract and relax as if you're doing a sit-up. Now you can get up to 700 muscle contractions in just 10 minutes and get the tone and definition you've always wanted.
I've gone from a waist 37 to a waist 34.
Work out your abs anywhere, watching TV, at the office, even around the house. Why spend $120 for a single unit product? With the double unit Ab Energizer, you get 2 modes and 10 settings to maximize your workout. For just 2 easy payments of only $29.95, your complete system includes the Ab Energizer belt with 2 units, tightening gel, meal plan, instruction guide, and carrying case. You also get a free 30-day supply of Diet Energizer with its fat-burning formula. If you don't lose at least 2 inches off your waist in the first 30 days, return it for a full refund. To order, call now.
Do what I do. On the way home from work, pick up some flowers. I got roses, put her in the bathtub. I'm gonna sprinkle a bunch of rose petals in the tub, and then rub her feet. I'm gonna give you a foot massage, and I'm gonna work every toe.
That sounds awful.
It does, doesn't it? I knew you'd say that. That's what Doug does to his wife. It's horrible, isn't it?
The Mind of the Married Man.
Call to order HBO on DirecTV.
One of the best things we do is we run the ball really well. On this particular play, we faked it to Edgerrin. These 4 guys are trying to kill me. And Marvin is running this post route all the way over here. Marvin and I are on the same page, so it's important for Marvin to come open on time so I don't have to get hit. And I put just enough air under the ball to throw it to him in the end zone.
For Marvin Harrison, Marvin's got it, touchdown!
Touchdown pass for Peyton Manning's quarterback rating.
This is CNN.
Joining us from New York, the Dean of American Broadcast Journalists, Walter Cronkite. Thank you so much, Walter. What is your read as to how well the media should or should not handle this Anthrax story?
Well, I think so far it's handling it as well as we can handle it with the knowledge we have and the information we're getting. That's always the question in these matters. Do we get enough information that we can do the editorial job of passing on that which the public needs to know? I think so far that we're getting that information.
You were in Italy when this occurred?
I'm afraid I was. I was in Florence the day that the September 11th, and we got back here as fast as we could, but that was first plane out was the following Sunday.
What was it like for you to come back to New York?
Well, we came back and we had a personal experience. We have an apartment down by the United Nations that overlooks the East River and looks downtown. We normally could barely see a corner of the World Trade buildings down there. When we came back, we could just see a great cloud of smoke, and in the evening, the red glow of fire is still burning. But we opened our windows when the apartment had been closed for a day. We had to shut them instantly. The fumes were so bad, and we're probably 3 miles north of the occasion. It was not pleasant.
You've seen many presidents in times of crisis. What's your assessment of President Bush?
I think he's been handling this situation extremely well. I think he's surprising those who did not think much of his presidency in the first place, but I think he's putting a lot of the fears about his leadership to rest. He seemed to be doing quite a good job of it.
And how about the public's reaction to all this? I mean, you go back, you remember Pearl Harbor.
Well, of course, it's much more severe than Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, of course, was a great shock to us, but it immediately plunged us into World War II, where we'd rather expected that someday we would be going, and this was the catalyst that did it. We were shocked at the loss of our ships and, of course, at the loss of the great number of our military people, but they were military people. It was an organized attack by a foreign government. This thing is quite different from that. The great toll of lives taken in the civilian population, innocent people who had no thought, no concept that anything like this was about to occur. And then, of course, the bravery of the firemen and the police and the rescue workers. It has been a great, of course, national event that has gripped all of our hearts, all of our souls, all of our thinking.
Walter, you've been a strong opponent all your broadcast life of censorship. Is some censorship necessary now?
Yes, very definitely, Larry. The censorship is necessary in covering the military. We should definitely be permitted to cover the military with even the smallest of units. They can still take care of a reporter and a cameraman, maybe more, with the size of the unit. But, of course, anything that they report, anything they write, anything they put in their cameras in the way of tape, has got to be held for military censorship. The importance of their being there is that the American people have the right to know, they have the duty to know what their boys and girls are doing in their name, and it must be recorded. It can't be put out immediately without military surveillance, military censorship. But if they're there, they can get that story out eventually, a day later, 2 days later, a week later, a month later, even if it's a year later. History will be preserved, and we will know how we conducted the war and with what efficiency we did it. We'll know who the heroes were, as well as perhaps those who did not do so well.
You think the public has the patience for the long haul here?
I think we do. I think the American people, in their immediate reaction to this terrible tragedy, have shown the stuff of which they're made. I do not see any reason why we're not ready for the long haul. As everybody's saying, they're expecting some other attacks. That's going to strain our fidelity to the job at hand, but I think we've got it in us to do it.
You wish you were reporting now on a daily basis?
Sure. I miss being on the front lines of every story. And this is, of course, the biggest story of our time.
Walter, are you feeling as well as you look?
Yeah, I'm still making it.
Well, we love you. Stay around. Thanks, Walter. Always good seeing you. Walter Cronkite, once known as the most trusted man in America, the former anchor of the CBS Evening News. We'll come back, tell you about tomorrow night, and talk with Aaron Brown. You're watching Larry King Live. Don't go away.
The critics are calling The Mind of the Married Man outrageously funny.
You're a loser. You can't even make your wife happy.
Embarrassingly truthful.
If I fired everybody here I wanted to ditto, it'd be just you and I left.
And smartly written.
I think that you are very, very talented.
You do. Catch an encore play of the first 3 episodes back to back. Don't miss the show that's destined to be among the most talked about new series.
These are the kind of thoughts that are going through my head.
The Mind of the Married Man. The first 3 episodes back to back on HBO.
Now's the best time to join America Online. Plug it in and you go. Because now you can try AOL and get our best offer ever. 1,000 hours of AOL free for 45 days. You don't need a credit card. Call 1-877-265-0200 to get everything AOL offers.
You've got mail.
I've got mail. I love when an instant message pops up.
Customer service is always there to help.
To get online in minutes plus 1,000 free hours, call 1-877-265-0200. Operators are standing by.
If we could do it, anyone can.
America Online. So easy to use, no wonder it's #1.
In your car, on the train, at the office, the U.S. government is protecting you from another act of terrorism. Find out how when you join Paula Zahn tomorrow morning, 7 Eastern. Depend on CNN.
Tomorrow night on Larry King Live, among many guests, Senators John Warner and Bob Graham. We turn the proceedings over to Aaron Brown now, who's in Atlanta. Aaron, Walter Cronkite just told us he misses being in the center of action. You are in the center of action. Is it tough when it's a story you wish you weren't having to cover?
Oh, is it tough? Yes. Do I wish I weren't able to cover it? No, I'm delighted to be able to cover it. It's an awful story, but as Mr. Cronkite said, it is the most important story of our lifetime, and to have the opportunity to cover it is a privilege.
And you're doing it superbly. Ladies and gentlemen, we turn it over. We'll see you tomorrow night. Here's Aaron Brown in Atlanta.
Thank you, Larry. Please don't ever ask me to follow Walter Cronkite again. That's too tough. Good evening again, everyone. It is dawn in Afghanistan, 10 o'clock tonight in South Florida. And in both those places, America's new war and the country's real fears are playing out. In Afghanistan, a quiet Tuesday morning. So far, U.S. forces have attacked only at night, but military planners tell us that could change, and so we continue to watch. Just as we watched through the night scope camera, these flashes that told us day 2 of the U.S. attacks had begun. That was just about noon Eastern time. Kabul and Kandahar, names few knew a month ago, are now familiar to all of us. We have a lot of ground to cover this evening. We begin by quickly whipping around the region and Washington, too. Just quick headlines. We'll get back to all of you. We start with CNN's Kamal Haider, somewhere in eastern Afghanistan. Kamal.
Yes, Aaron, this morning at about 10 to 3, the anti-aircraft artillery opened up around Jalalabad. The people were thinking that this was another attack. Apparently, they were able to air the aircraft, but there were no loud explosions, which are something that go along with the bombs, the sounds that come after they played. So Jalalabad, very, very tense this night. Aaron?
Kamal, we'll get more detail from you coming up in the hour. We go next to northern Afghanistan, that part of the country controlled by the Northern Alliance. And Matthew Chance is there. Matthew?
That's right, Aaron. A second night of airstrikes here, seen from the perspective of northern Afghanistan. Commanders of the anti-Taliban Northern Alliance say they've been shelling frontline positions of the Taliban along with the United States. But at the moment, they say they're holding their positions, waiting to see what the coming days will bring, what the United States will do before they decide on their military strategy about taking Kabul, Aaron.
We'll check back with you, Matthew. Across the border in Pakistan, perhaps the most fragile of the coalition states, the most interesting from our perspective, Christiane Amanpour is there. Christiane, the headlines today.
Well, Aaron, we heard from inside Kandahar. They had reported more explosions shortly before dawn, about 2 hours ago. Unconfirmed reports from the Iranian press agency sources say that the Taliban Air Force commander was killed and a key Taliban military commander. Those are unconfirmed. President of Pakistan watching closely to see whether there are more demonstrations here today. He said that he hopes for a quick, short, sharp, targeted campaign to be over soon. And President of Pakistan moving to diffuse tension on its eastern flank with his nuclear rival India. Reports here saying that he phoned the Prime Minister of India last night asking to try to restart peace negotiations on the disputed Kashmir region.
Lots of headlines there. We'll be back to Pakistan, over to the Pentagon, and Jamie McIntyre. Jamie.
Well, it appears that the second day of airstrikes has essentially been completed, although the U.S. reserves the right to strike at any time, particularly if there's a target of opportunity. No confirmation here of the deaths on the ground in Afghanistan, but Pentagon officials say all U.S. pilots have returned safely to either their aircraft carriers or land bases as they prepare for strikes on day 3. Aaron?
Jamie, thank you. We'll be back with you. And finally, over to the White House, our senior White House correspondent, John King. John?
Aaron, another busy day here. We saw the president introduce the man he has tapped to lead the war on terrorism here at home. We learned today that it was a week ago tomorrow, Tuesday, October 2nd, that the president initially signed off on the military campaign that has now been underway for 2 days. And we also learned tonight that the president turned furious in recent days at what he believed was the reckless leaking of classified and other sensitive information by members of Congress.
Thank you all for the quick headlines. We'll be back for the details coming up in just a moment or two. It says a good deal about this new war thousands of miles away that our lead story tonight is in fact just a few hundred miles away from us in Atlanta, down in South Florida. As you may know now, you probably have heard, a second person has been exposed to anthrax. He is in a Florida hospital. Ernesto Blanco worked in the same building where Robert Stevens worked until Mr. Stevens died from anthrax late last week. 2 cases of exposure to an illness that is virtually unheard of at any time, as the FBI and medical investigators working to answer the question you can't help but ask: how did anthrax spores get into an office building in South Florida? CNN's Mark Potter joins us now with an update. Mark, good evening.
Good evening, Aaron. Well, actually, the investigation continues on a number of fronts. Federal and state law enforcement and health officials want to know how one man was killed by anthrax. They're also investigating how a co-worker was exposed to the disease. They also want to know how anthrax ended up in the building where they both worked. Now, that building houses American Media Incorporated. That's a company that publishes tabloid newspapers in Boca Raton, Florida. The man who died was a photo editor there. The man who was exposed to anthrax but never actually contracted the disease, at least not yet, worked in the mailroom, a 73-year-old man. Now, sources tell CNN that FBI agents will be looking at letters and packages that were delivered to the company. They will also be looking over people who had access to the building, and that would include employees. And now Newsweek magazine is reporting that the FBI agents will also be looking for some former interns, including one who reportedly wrote an email to the company that some remember as having a foreboding tone. Newsweek says it is also looking, that the FBI is also looking at another letter that contained a suspicious substance. Now, in Washington, the Attorney General, John Ashcroft, says that this case is being treated as if it could become a criminal investigation, although there is no clear evidence now linking any of this to terrorist activity. At a news conference, though, he was asked if Mohammed Atta, one of the September 11th hijackers, might be considered a suspect in this case. If you remember, Mohammed Atta took flight lessons at an airport about 15 miles from the American media company.
I think it's fair to say that we are taking the matter very seriously. The kind of examination which we are conducting is very thorough. It includes the steps that are necessary to safeguard the area totally.
Now, today, workers and visitors to the building going back to August 1st were urged to go to a public health clinic in Deerfield Beach where they were tested for possible exposure to anthrax. They were also given antibiotics, which they must now take for 60 days. And they are being told that we are being told that the test results may take days, if not longer. And of course, you can imagine the anxiety that the workers are feeling, and that news that it could be a while before they get the results must be adding considerably to that, Aaron.
Mark, I'm not sure I can imagine, but we'll try. It is almost unimaginable. Thank you. It's been a long day for you in South Florida. Mark Potter, working the anthrax case from there. It does seem to us that we are somewhere now in a kind of no man's land. Sheer happenstance is still a possible explanation, but something sinister obviously cannot be ignored at this point. This is a very tricky sort of place to be, which is why we now turn to Philip Hanna. Mr. Hanna is a microbiologist, the director of biocontainment facility at the University of Michigan, and he joins us tonight from Ann Arbor. Mr. Hanna, Dr. Hanna, I would guess, right?
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Look, there are a couple of difficult questions, it seems to me, but they're pretty simple in another way. How likely is it that there is an innocent explanation for this?
Now, that's a long shot at this stage, I think. Two people in the same building at the locale close to where the crop dusters were grounded at this time in our history. It's possibility still, but I'd consider it further down the list than something, as you say, more sinister.
Okay, so now we have to look at it is still possible that it is innocent. It is not likely, in your view, that that is so. How might anthrax have gotten into that building? How can that happen?
Right. If it's by human intervention, then one would expect that if it was released into the air ducts or the heating or air conditioning systems, there'd be spores everywhere. And they should be picked up by the routine testing by the officials on hand.
Reading is not a partisan issue. I mean, getting every child to read in America is an American issue, and it ought to be an American goal.
Back in Washington, leading Democrats launched their campaign against the Bush administration's missile defense plan, calling missile defense a waste of money that would start a dangerous global arms race.
Let's stop this nonsense before we end up pulling the trigger.
At the Pentagon, there was talk of war.
Today, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld said he was declaring war on bureaucracy and waste.
Terrorism was headline news. There were several stories about a wave of deadly suicide bombings far away in Israel. Few noticed a report from Afghanistan.
Word of a possible assassination in Afghanistan. General Ahmed Massoud commanded the last real military opposition to the Taliban regime.
Later reports confirmed the leader of the anti-Taliban forces was assassinated. On the other side of the world, around American water coolers, people were talking about what they'd done over the weekend. The expensive miniseries Band of Brothers had just premiered on HBO.
Any spare ammo in a pack or musette bag, bring it along.
The Musketeer was the weekend's top-grossing movie. It was week one of NFL action, and Barry Bonds had hit his 63rd home run that weekend and was just 7 shy of Mark McGwire's record. By the end of the day, there was bigger sports news about a star's return to the NBA.
Michael Jordan giving the strongest indications yet that he will return to the playing surface this year.
The style conscious talked about the best and worst dressed and the start of Fashion Week in New York, where designers unveiled next spring's looks. In New York City, the financial community followed the day's stories on the plunge in the world's stock markets.
All the major markets, the indices, not indexes, indices, if you please, are sharply lower.
On the business page of one New York City newspaper, the Daily News, was a scoop about a new deal to upgrade and expand the number of retail stores under the World Trade Center. And at the World Trade Center that day, a member of World Views, an artist residency program, got out her camera. Video artist Monica Bravo took these time-lapse images from the 92nd floor of the North Tower. This was the view on September 10th, the last day before America's view of the world changed. Beth Nissen, CNN, New York.
We'll be right back.
One company provides total document solutions for business. One company offers digital copiers that scan, print, fax, and finish. One company makes the most earth-friendly printers and copiers on the planet. One company has a printer drum that lasts 30 times longer. One company. Kyocera Mita.
I've been your doctor for 30 years. You still hate the thermometer. Okay, you drink lots of fluids. Take it easy for a day or two.
As terrorist triumphs, and including a mock assassination of President Bill Clinton. And an aspiring pilot named Zacharias Moussaoui enrolled in a Minnesota flight school, paying thousands of dollars in cash. Curiously, he wasn't interested in learning takeoffs or landings. He only wanted to learn to steer a plane in midair. He was detained and remains in custody on immigration law violations. After his apprehension, French intelligence officials warned that he had ties to Osama bin Laden. But the investigation went nowhere. What's more, just last year, the FAA itself warned that bin Laden might bring down an airliner or hijack one to humiliate America. But somehow that FAA warning got virtually no attention. The terrorist threats, even the murderous deeds of the last decade, long since forgotten. The 1993 World Trade Center bombing, the embassy bombings, the attack on the USS Cole, all old news, all lost in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. As the summer of 2001 began, Kelly and Liz were certainly distracted. Their friendship had finally blossomed into romance, much as Kelly's mother had hoped it would.
We were just talking about our lives, and to a certain extent, I was under pressure, being a single mother. And he said to me, I can make your life a lot easier. Why don't you just marry me? I looked at him, I thought he was kidding, and I laughed.
He wasn't. In July, Kelly joined Liz at an auction on Long Island and bid for an engagement ring.
We got the ring, and the whole place cheered. They were so happy for us.
But now the final preparations were underway for the attack that had been choreographed by Osama bin Laden and that was to be carried out by Mohammed Atta. The attack that would ensnare the lives of Kelly Ryer, Daphne Carlisle, and Chris Colasanti. All 19 of the future hijackers had now made it into the U.S. And as August came to a close, they were quietly moving into position, all of them still undetected. The attack on America was now just weeks away. An international affairs buff, lawyer Kelly Ryer, had been keeping up with news of terrorist threats more than most. He and his close friend Kevin talked about it from time to time, wondering aloud when and where the terrorists might strike next.
And, you know, what are the prime candidates? I mean, 93 already proved that, you know, what does the World Trade Center represent? It represents our financial strength. You know, the U.S. dollar, our financial strength.
As the end of summer approached, Kelly and Liz took a few precious days off together. They rented a car and drove from Manhattan to the beach.
Showing her the ducks, because they have ducks in the park in Southampton, and we were also swimming in the pool.
It was now September 5th. The attack was just 6 days away. The same day Liz and Kelly went to the shore, Mohammed Atta took his rental car to Boston's Logan Airport. That very same day in Fort Lauderdale, 2 other hijackers walked into a travel agency and bought tickets on a flight to Newark, New Jersey, one way. 2 days later, on September 7th, Mohammed Atta and 2 other men had a night out, a meal and drinks at a sports bar. One of them began to argue when it was time to pay the bill.
And very arrogantly, he said, no, I don't have a money issue. He took money out of his pocket and put it on the table, and he said, I'm an airline pilot.
That same night, September 7th, Daphne and Ruby ended the week as they always did, with a family dinner.
We come up and we eat dinner. We all sit around, we talk, and we laugh.
It was now September 8th, Saturday, a day off for Chris Colasanti. He and his neighbors had a block party in New Jersey. Chris spent much of the day doing his favorite thing, especially playing outside with his girls.
He was playing with the kids in the street, and they're writing with chalk, and he was outlining them in chalk and pushing Lauren around on her bicycle, and Kara was roller skating.
That same Saturday, Mohammed Atta took care of some last bits of business. He and another man went to this grocery store and wired money to a man linked to Osama bin Laden. They were apparently not in a pleasant mood.
The 2 men are described as being angry, agitated, their demeanor very sour, scowling.
It was now Sunday, September 9th, a big sports day, the start of the NFL season, the men's U.S. Open Tennis Championship. As Mohammed Atta boarded a Metrojet flight from Baltimore to Boston, Kelly Ryer was driving home from the beach to New York, alone. Daphne Carlisle was feeling under the weather and stayed home. Chris Colasanti took his older daughter, Kara, to a picnic.
He told me that Kara was very clingy that day, like she wanted him to herself, and he still played with the other kids, but, you know, she was resisting.
It was now Monday night, September 10th. Muhammad Atta checked into this Comfort Inn in Maine. Despite a big storm, Liz joined Kelly in the city. Daphne Carlisle got ready for another workday up on the 82nd floor of the World Trade Center. And as usual, in Hoboken, Chris Colasanti got his girls ready for bed.
He gave him a bath, and I put Lauren to bed, and he read Kara a book, and then they looked through his baseball cards.
For all of them, just another quiet night at home with no idea what morning would bring.
Love and Terror, tonight's Dateline special, will continue after this brief message.
Heading into work, getting your kids off to school. You're about to see how Chris, Daphne, and Kelly began that day. You already know what the terrorists were doing. Two worlds were about to collide. Here again, Bob McEwen.
It was September 11th. And just past 7 a.m., Chris Colasanti left home for his job at the World Trade Center, though not before having a conversation of sorts with his 2-year-old daughter, Lauren.
He kissed her, and he's like, I love you, and she didn't say anything. And he said, I love you, and she still didn't say anything. And we both said, like, say I love you at the same time, and she said, I love you, and he walked away.
Secretary Daphne Carlisle could hardly believe her run of good luck that Tuesday morning. A seat on the subway, an uncrowded elevator, and breakfast on the 82nd floor of Tower Number 1 by 8:25. Kelly Ryer arrived early that day, too. By 8:30, Chris, Daphne, and Kelly were all in their offices. All three of them unaware that the plot that had been brewing in desert camps and safe houses around the world for more than a decade was now in motion. 4 planes bearing down on symbols of American military and economic power. 2 of them headed straight for the Twin Towers. At about 8:46, impact. And America would soon understand it was under attack.
I turned on the television, and I saw smoke coming out of Tower 1. My first reaction was, oh my God, Daphne's in that building.
American Airlines Flight 11, hijacked by key bin Laden associate Muhammad Atta, crashed into Tower Number 1 at about the 90th floor. Daphne's sister Ruby watched the firestorm with horror.
Just begin to pray, oh God, please keep her safe. Please, I hope she got out of there, Lord, please.
The shadow of the airplane's wing had passed right in front of her sister's window just seconds before the first plane struck. Now Daphne was in the stairwell and racing for the ground floor. Across the river in New Jersey, Chris's wife was preparing breakfast for her daughters when she got an urgent call to turn on the television set.
My best friend called me, and she's like, there's something big happening at the World Trade Center. Call Chris. It just looked so awful, and I was just like, how does someone survive that?
Chris's office was also in Tower 1, but farther up on the 105th floor. His wife tried to reach him by phone, but ring after ring, no one picked up. Friends rallied around, urging her to keep up hope. But as she watched the smoke and flames swirl around the upper floors of her husband's tower, she began to brace herself.
I must have talked to 100 people on the phone who were worried about Chris and who were also calling to say, like, we're going to hear good news, and I'll have hope until I hear otherwise. But I was, you know, I was really thinking, like, I'm alone, you know, my husband's dead.
While Chris's wife and Daphne's sister waited for news, any news from their loved ones, Kelly Ryer's fiancée Liz took a moment to count her blessings. Kelly's office was in the other tower, Tower Number 2, and she thought, safe from the danger.
And I was on the phone with my mother telling her, it's okay, Kelly's in the Trade Center, but he's in Tower 2.
But at 9:06, her world was swept up in it all, too, when another plane slammed into Tower 2, about 20 floors below Kelly Ryer's office.
I hear, Liz, Tower 2 just got hit by a plane. I felt this chill go through me. I said, oh my God, he's in the towers.
Liz dialed Kelly's cell phone, and to her relief, someone answered. But the sound at the other end of the line brought little comfort.
I was just screaming into the cell phone, Kelly, 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 and all I heard was screaming, women screaming, 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 and then the phone went dead.
Away from the towers, the families of Chris, Daphne, and Kelly, along with millions of stunned Americans, continued to watch the terror unfold. Then, at 9:50,
I'm looking up at the monitor, and they show Tower 2 coming down. And I just sat there in disbelief, and I said, those people don't have a chance. And I stopped crying. The emotion that went through me was just, my God, did anyone get out?
40 minutes later, Tower 1 was gone too. Still, no word from Kelly.
And I called my mother, and my mother said, are you okay? And I said to her, I'm okay as long as I don't have confirmation that he's not alive. As long as I don't know that he's not alive, I have hope in my heart that he is. And I'll be okay.
Finally, in the blur of that day, no one knows exactly when, the phone rang.
And I answer it, and I hear in a very soft, hushed voice, Liz, I'm alive. And the first thing that went through my mind was, oh my God, he's in the rubble, in an air pocket. How are we going to get to him? Or this is the death call. I said, where are you?
She is still dumbfounded by what she heard next.
I'm at Rite Aid.
Remarkably, Kelly was safe, but only after surviving a hell that was too awful and too real to be a nightmare.
It was almost like the most frightening horror movie you could ever watch.
Kelly's ordeal actually began when that first jet slammed into the other tower, Tower 1.
That's when the first body that I saw fell out, and I'll never forget it. There was a man who just wandered up to the gaping hole in the side of the building, sort of swayed back and forth and fell out. And we're standing at my window and just watching this body, fall. And, the horror of seeing that was unspeakable.
Soon, there were calls to get out of the building, and Kelly began the 100-floor journey to the street below. The mood was orderly, he says, even calm, especially when they reached the 76th floor and heard the announcement on the loudspeaker.
Basically said, Trade Center 2 at this point appears secure. You can go back to your offices.
Reassured, Kelly changed course, and along with a few co-workers, he started back up the stairs towards his office. At the 78th floor, they decided to stop walking and catch an elevator. But just as he stepped inside,
the explosion and the blast just blasted me into the elevator. Smashed me up against the back wall. It was split open, the sides were split open, the floor was blown up, and there was an inferno in the elevator shaft that you could just see, just massive amounts of fire, and hot pieces of flame and ash just sticking to you, just swirling up in the elevator, and it's filling up with black smoke.
In the confusion, Kelly considered his options. Either stay in the elevator and risk smoke inhalation or a possible free fall, or make his way back out into the chaos of the tower.
The first thing that pops in my mind is, I want to live. I have people depending on me. I have my Liz, I have my mother, my brother. I want to see these people again. I'm not going to die. I'm going to try as hard as I can not to die.
But first, he had to find his way out of the burning elevator.
I couldn't just jump out because the elevator had dropped about a foot or two, so I had to crawl out.
The devastation outside in the hallway was far worse.
The blast killed most of the people standing on that floor instantaneously, or severely injured them. You basically had to crawl over that to get to the stairs.
Among the dead and wounded, some of those waiting to take the elevator with Kelly Ryer just a few minutes before.
People that I knew. People that aren't here today.
Kelly retraced his steps to the stairwell, where he and other survivors of the explosion worked together to move debris blocking the way to the exit and to carry those who couldn't make it on their own. As they inched their way down the stairs, rescue workers were racing up, climbing towards the smoke and the flames.
They ran into this building that I was fighting everything to get out of.
Kelly knew that each landing brought them closer to safety, but searing heat and blinding smoke were never far away, and around every corner, there was the threat of dangers unknown.
You're thinking, is it going to all of a sudden race up the staircase? Is the door going to blow open?
Finally, somehow, he stumbled out of Tower 2. Just minutes later, it collapsed. It was another hour at least before he placed that call to Liz.
where are you? He says, I don't know, I think I'm on Liberty Street. Like, he's alive! He's alive! I'm so happy he's alive.
And somehow Daphne Carlisle had escaped the initial blast. Now she was fighting to get out of the building. Her family reached her by phone as she made her way down from the 82nd floor.
She says, oh, I'm coming out. I'm on my way down. She was like, I'm on my way down. I'm on my way out of here. I'm trying to imagine how long does it take to get down, you know, all those flights. You know, does it take a long time? Or, you know, are they running down? You know, it was all in my mind. I knew she had a bad knee.
I got a little afraid because there's so many stairs. I was getting tired. I was wondering if I was going to make it out. I would die there from exhaustion.
This is what she looked like moments after her escape, covered by debris from the fallen towers.
3 hours or this can happen. 3 hours. I don't know if I was going to live or die within 3 hours.
But for Chris Colasanti, that devoted husband and most loving of fathers, the ending was different. He was at work at Cantor Fitzgerald when the plane slammed into the tower a few floors below. Not one of the firm's 700 employees in his office that day survived. After 10 years of planning and plotting, fueled by hate, the terrorists had finally hit their target. Not in the Middle East, not in Africa, not in Europe, but in Washington and Manhattan. For years, they had threatened war against America. Now, they had actually waged it. Yet somehow, it was still a surprise.
A time of innocence, a time of confidence.
And now a mother had to find some way to tell her 2 little girls that their family of 4 would only be 3.
Preserve your memories, they're all that's left you.
I had like rehearsed it in my head like 100 times, but I couldn't believe that I actually had to say it. I said that there was a big accident at the World Trade Center and where Daddy worked, and that I believe he died, and she was just like horrified, and she, you know, said, no, don't say that, and I don't believe you, and she, like, was crying, and she said to me, like, you can never leave me, you have to go everywhere with me, and I was like, okay, I will.
It is only one story of thousands from September 11th, just one of the families forever different because of what happened that day. We all know something now that we didn't know then. And now, we will all have to find a way to live with it.
A few final notes. Since the World Trade Center attack 4 weeks ago today, Kelly and Liz have decided to move up their wedding date. Daphne says she hopes to return to work once new office space is found. And Chris Colasanti's wife, she says their 2 daughters are doing better. And 4-year-old Kara, who was so afraid of being separated from her mother, but when she first returned to nursery school, her mother stayed with her every day. But after a week, Kara told her mom, you don't have to stay with me today. That's all for this edition of Dateline Tuesday. We'll see you again for Dateline Friday at 9, 8 Central. Now stay tuned for your local news. I'm Stone Phillips, and for all of us at NBC News, good night.
Tornadoes destroy 1,000 structures in Oklahoma tonight. Twisters literally picking up, destroying homes.
Plus, when you see an ambulance with lights flashing and horns blaring, you get out of the way. But what if a terrorist were behind the wheel?
The Secret City tries to get the word out. Tonight on the Night Beat. Good evening, I'm Ted Hall.
And I'm Robin Wilhoit. The barn exploded tonight off Garrison Road in Carnes. A man was working on a small grinder when a spark set off something flammable. Neighbors heard a boom and say they saw fireworks coming out of the flames. Firefighters don't know if fireworks were stored in that barn, but it was full of flammable materials.
But there was a old car that was stored in the barn that he was getting ready to restore. There was a 4-wheeler and trailer in there, as well as some gasoline and kerosene that he had stored in there.
The man inside the barn had the back of his head singed, but he refused medical treatment.
A Maryville man faces criminal charges after his pickup truck slammed into a woman's home. It happened Friday night just south.
This is Osama bin Laden's spokesperson on a videotape handed over to Arab television. He's calling on Muslims everywhere to wage a holy war against America. He praises the World Trade Center hijackers and says more planes will be hijacked. He says thousands of bin Laden followers are as determined to die as Americans are to live.
After 3 days of bombing, the U.S. says it now owns the skies over Afghanistan. The Pentagon claims cruise missiles and bombs have hit 44 targets, and they released before and after pictures to prove it. A Taliban surface-to-air missile site outside Kandahar destroyed. The runways of military airstrip in western Afghanistan riddled with bomb craters, you see. One of Osama bin Laden's terrorist training camps pulverized. Here's another view inside Afghanistan. People from the poorest to the most important are running for their lives now. These people of Jalalabad are gathering everything they can as fast as they can and heading for Pakistan. Even Taliban leaders are now said to have left the capital to hide out in the mountains with bin Laden. 4 Afghan security guards were killed by a stray missile. So far, no Americans have been hurt. Take a look at Afghanistan's rebel Northern Alliance troops. They're wearing new uniforms tonight. The clothes are from Russia. New shipments of weapons are expected for them as well. The rebels are listening to the Voice of America radio broadcasts and still waiting to make their big push to overthrow the Taliban.
Now to the anthrax scare. Hundreds of people in Florida are still waiting to find out if they have anthrax in their system. In Palm Beach County, American media remains closed. The company publishes tabloids including The Sun and the National Enquirer. One worker has died of anthrax, another worker has it in his nasal cavity, and anthrax has been found on a computer keyboard. The FBI believes the anthrax strain was man-made, and they are trying to trace it back to a laboratory. Experts can't find any evidence of anthrax on the belongings of the 19 hijackers. So far, about 800 people have been tested for anthrax. Test results usually take 2 to 3 days to get back, but only 2 labs in the country can process the tests. That means some people may have to wait weeks for the results. The FBI tonight says this former intern had nothing to do with the anthrax. This is 23-year-old Jordan Artemidi. Agents talked to him about an email he left after finishing his internship in mid-August. It says, "I will be remembered by all the little tricks and treats that I hid around the office." He says he was just referring to bagels and cream cheese. He left an appreciation.
What would happen if terrorists got control of emergency vehicles? Could they race anywhere without suspicion? Tennessee's governor worries that terrorists will try to buy or steal ambulances. He's asking ambulance services to step up their security. Knoxville's rural metro already taking precautions.
We immediately, on the terrorist acts in New York, started removing keys out of ambulances, making sure that they were turned off appropriately. We have certain disabling devices on the ambulances as well.
State of Tennessee also going to keep a closer eye on who's buying ambulances.
Meanwhile, Governor Don Sundquist is grounding crop dusters until pilot IDs and licensing qualifications can be checked. There are 128 pilots licensed by the state, and officials believe most will be back in the air by tomorrow afternoon. Now, this is just one of the first recommendations by Tennessee's new Director of Homeland Security, Brigadier General Wendell Gilbert.
The tourism industry taking a hit all across the country following those events of September 11th.
Airlines, hotels, and rental car companies are doing whatever they can to convince people to get out and enjoy America. But the people in charge of luring travelers to Oak Ridge face an even more difficult challenge.
Action 10's Jennifer Mabe tonight in our newsroom with more. Jennifer?
Ted and Robin, Oak Ridge is a vacation destination. Probably seems a little crazy for most of us because we live so close. But every week, many people do travel for miles to get to know the once secret city a little bit better. So we wondered how the attack on America and resulting war is affecting tourism in this already struggling city. Riding the rails is one way to see the beautiful East Tennessee countryside. But the Secret City excursion train is also a way to see what's been hidden for years. Secret parts of the K-25 plant.
We have quite a few attractions here that people should be coming to.
But they're not. Since September 11th, hotels, restaurants, and retail stores have seen a sharp decline in sales.
Our total revenue was down probably over $250,000.
But business leaders think they can turn things around, especially with the renewed sense of patriotism and a feeling that Americans can do anything they set their minds to.
I think Oak Ridge is a good example of America's resilience and what America can do when it's pushed to the limit. The last time America was attacked on its own soil was Pearl Harbor, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and the Manhattan Project was one of the results of that.
Valentino hopes people will want to know more about that history and decide to get their information right from the source in Oak Ridge.
Jennifer, is tourism starting to pick up?
Actually, it is. In the first week of October, many hotels and restaurants reported an increase over previous weeks, but it's unknown how the war breaking out this weekend could affect those numbers.
We'll have to see. All right, Jennifer, thank you.
A West Tennessee gas station is accused of cheating customers. The state attorney general's office is suing the owner of 2 Superway gas stations in Jackson. The suit claims that Steve Saffa raised the price of gasoline twice on the night of September 11th, the greatest increase from $1.99 to $3.49 a gallon. Price hikes like that violate the Tennessee Consumer Protection Act.
TennCare's largest managed care organization appears to be missing an important deadline. Access Med Plus had until the end of today to give the state records proving its financial stability. So far, the state has not received those documents, and that means Access Med Plus's contract could be canceled on October 31st. The HMO has had many financial problems and has not always been able to pay its bills.
Reverend Billy Graham with another health problem. Find out if it's going to affect this week's crusade.
Plus, meteorologist Todd Howell has the forecast when we come back.
And a night of terrible twisters in the heartland.
And I've seen quite a few trees that are broken off roughly 15 or 20 feet above the ground. I can hear it's getting very, very violent. Very violent. There goes a barn. There goes a house or something. It just...
Now, if you're going to have a tornado, if you have to have it, I guess the best place to have it is in an open, rural area. There were no reports of damage or injuries, but just some amazing video of that funnel cloud. Now, our weather...
He's completely destroyed something here. We've lost something major. I'm going to go ahead and say we've lost a house. We've lost several homes here, it looks like. I have debris everywhere.
Unbelievable tornado video tonight. This one caused some extensive damage near Elk City, Oklahoma. You can see the tornado grow even as this video moves on, but then there's another one. Other tornadoes in the area wiped out homes and businesses. Police estimate nearly 1,000 man-made structures were destroyed today. So far, only minor injuries reported, but police are searching house to house in the hardest hit areas. Reports of more bad weather tonight at Oklahoma as well.
You know, you typically think of tornadoes in the springtime. Is this unusual?
October, it is. Usually it's fairly quiet across much of the country. There's a secondary peak in November in the latter part of fall, but usually it's a springtime. So folks trying to recover counted about 23 reported tornadoes from Nebraska to Kansas to Oklahoma so far today and tonight. Well, let's check out the latest here in East Tennessee, and we'll get to that national weather in just a second. We do have high clouds, not really that thick, but high thin clouds moving into much of Tennessee and now Kentucky, advancing eastward, and no moisture associated with these high clouds, moisture coming out of the low clouds. So just some high thin cirrus clouds overhead tonight, and temperatures not as cool tonight as what we've seen the last couple of nights. 56 now in Knoxville and up in the Tri-Cities. You can tell by the blue shading, temperatures dropping in the 40s already in Virginia and North Carolina. So that's where the cool air is right now. 58 in Chattanooga, 62, fairly mild in Nashville, and quite mild at this hour, 69 in Memphis. No weather problems for us tonight. Just a nice cool night coming up. Let's check on current conditions outside right now. We are looking at mostly cloudy skies, 50 degrees, dew point 43, humidity 80%. The winds are calm and pressure rising, still high actually, 30.40. High today officially at the airport, 70 degrees. Felt great today with more sunshine, warmer temperatures. Low this morning, chilly, 39. Records 90 and 30 for this date in history. Sun comes up tomorrow at 7:38 and sets at 7:07. Okay, midweek forecast for Wednesday. On the plateau, temperatures fairly mild, actually 48 degrees expected in the morning, close to the upper 40s, 70 in the afternoon, a partly cloudy and milder day. So tomorrow should be dry and mild on the plateau and partly cloudy and milder here in the valley with 73 expected for a high. So that should feel pretty good in the afternoon and 43 to start off. So a cool start, but not as cold again tomorrow morning as what we've seen. Partly cloudy and mild in the mountains, colors changing. Beautiful time of the year here in East Tennessee, 43 and 70 for the mountains. Here are the big thunderstorms right there in Oklahoma and also in southwestern part of the Oklahoma. And also looking at this picture, this is kind of a V-shaped signature, and that's typically a strong indication of severe tornadic thunderstorms. And also up in Nebraska, right now, these thunderstorms, tornado watch box and yellow severe thunderstorm watch box, Nebraska into Kansas. But still in Oklahoma, off that signature, you've just got the winds coming in out of the south at the surface, mid-level winds out of the west, and that creates a twisting of the winds, dangerous twisting of the winds, and that's why there's still a potential for tornadoes in Oklahoma right now, although some of the other thunderstorms moving into Arkansas and into Missouri. So still active right now in the plain states. All right, the active cold front with plenty of energy still well to our west tomorrow will stay mild and dry, and then this cold front moves closer on Thursday. I've got a slight chance for showers, but only till late Thursday, and a better chance Thursday night as this cold front moves in. Now, it's going to weaken somewhat. It's waiting on actually a reinforcing shot of energy, so it looks like Friday and possibly into Saturday, we're going to hang on to a threat for showers and maybe some thunderstorms. Temperatures tomorrow in the low to mid-70s, and again on Thursday, and then that first front moves in now on Friday, and then it's going to wait for a kick. Well, that kick comes on Saturday, and it's not going to kick it out until early Sunday. So Friday to early Sunday, there's a decent chance of showers and maybe a few thunderstorms. We'll watch that. Sure turn much cooler late Sunday.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. A diet that helps people lose weight may also hurt their heart.
We've got more on that coming up, and later find out who singer from Virginia to California, but are they real?
We're scared. I mean, everybody's scared.
Do you not eat food? Do you not open your mail?
This is a time of war, and it is a time to take all proper precautions.
Tonight, living under threat. America fights back.
From ABC News, Ted Koppel.
If it weren't such a grim matter of life and death, it could almost make you smile. The Reuters news agency, for reasons best known to its editors, has, late this evening, bulletined an announcement by the Taliban authorities that they have lifted all restrictions on Osama bin Laden. It makes you wonder what kind of control they were exercising over him and his organization prior to this evening. Clearly, though, U.S. and British air attacks on Taliban targets in Afghanistan have changed that government's rhetoric. Previously, they had left the impression that they were willing to put bin Laden on trial themselves, if only the United States would provide adequate evidence of his involvement in the September 11th atrocities. That charade is now over. Not that bin Laden's operation has been awaiting approval. A spokesman for Al-Qaeda launched a lengthy videotaped diatribe against the United States today. We'll give you the essence of that a little later in our broadcast. But senior administration officials are privately expressing concern over that videotape and one released a couple of days ago showing Osama bin Laden himself. It is not the apparent message that bothers the administration, but the possibility that bin Laden may be sending coded messages buried either in body language or the text to terrorist cells around the world. We begin tonight on the front, where the military tactics are shifting. And joining us once again from the Pentagon, National Security Correspondent John McWethy. John, I gather the planes keep flying. Are the bombing missions more or less over?
They are going out on bombing missions, looking for targets of opportunity, Ted, and they are finding fewer and fewer. So we are getting reports from the aircraft carriers, from the pilots, who say they're coming back with a full load of bombs.
So what is it that they're going to be doing from here on in?
I would regard today as a real turning point in this very brief air campaign, Ted. And from now on, I think you can count on the United States Navy and the U.S. Air Force pulling what is called combat patrol. There are going to be American planes flying over the airspace of Afghanistan 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, able to strike targets whenever they find something moving that they regard as suspicious.
Any word on ground forces?
Ground forces, actually, yes, we do have a small word on ground forces. ABC News has learned that there is a large contingent of special operations forces that are on the move tonight, heading toward the region, and we suspect within a week, teams of them will be in Afghanistan beginning the surveillance and intelligence gathering phase of this operation.
Would it be fair to say that it's unrealistic to expect that we'll hear much more than that about their mission?
It will be amazing if we even hear that they have landed or that they are doing anything. This is an operation that the United States feels must remain extremely secret in order for it to succeed and in order for the operation not to endanger the lives of the men who are on it.
Over at the White House today, the president publicly expressed his outrage over some of the classified material that is leaking out into the media. Now, you know and I know that some of that outrage emanates from your building, in particular from the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld. He's been around this town for a very long time. That's always the way things have been here in Washington. What is it that particularly outrages him?
Well, I don't think Don Rumsfeld feels it has always been that way in Washington. He was here 25 years ago as Secretary of Defense, and he felt when he came back into office that things had changed dramatically in Washington, and he was hell-bent for leather to make sure that under his watch here at the Pentagon, that the issue of leaking became very serious business. And he has succeeded to a very large degree in stomping down on the movement of any of the details of classified material. He's scared the heck out of people here.
In other words, you're finding it more difficult to get information, as are your colleagues.
It's much more difficult, and you talk to any reporter and you will find that is the case.
John McWethy at the Pentagon. One of the effects of the air campaign has been to clear the way for Afghanistan's opposition forces, the so-called Northern Alliance, which currently controls about 10% of the country. The Secretary of Defense today confirmed that a concentration of Taliban forces, numbering in the hundreds, were attacked by air in the city of Mazar-e-Sharif, in an area where the Taliban army is battling the Northern Alliance. ABC's Don Dahler is in northern Afghanistan, where he has spent time in the field with the rebels.
This is the image of itself Afghanistan's Northern Alliance would like to present to the world. A well-trained, well-equipped fighting force, viable and vital. But soldiers in crisp uniforms and mechanized weaponry are in reality a very small part of this army. Gulen Kadar has fought for the alliance for 6 years. When he heard the air bombardment was about to begin, he brought his family out of their Taliban-controlled village, past the front lines, and to a refugee camp near the town of Hoja Bahdin. The bombing, he says, was a good opportunity to bring my family from there to here. Here isn't exactly paradise. Conditions in the refugee camp are rough. Dust storms a common annoyance, disease the constant enemy. But his wife and 5 children are now safe from the bombs and safe from the Taliban. Kadar made sure his family was settled in, sharing food in a small hut with some relatives, and then joined up with a group of men heading back to the front. As long as the Taliban exists, I will fight them, he says. Until there's peace in the country, I will be fighting. The fight is not far away. The front to which Kadar is headed is half a day's trip from the refugee camp. It's a journey we took a few days earlier to find out what kind of men make up the Northern Alliance and how they've been able to hang on for 5 years of defeat after defeat after defeat. There are few roads in this part of Afghanistan, at least in the western sense of the word. Trucks and cars and donkeys follow a well-worn path that grows wider in places where it makes more sense to swerve around rather than drive through gaping potholes. And it's a true pioneer who leaves the beaten track and risks discovering one of the estimated 10 million landmines still scattered around this parched countryside. We hear there are parts of Afghanistan that are lush and green. This is not one of them.
One of the hazards of driving around here with all this dust is the fuel filter gets constantly clogged, and you can see it's just full of stuff like that.
We're ultimately headed to a village named Zard Kamar, where there are reports of firefights with Arabic-speaking Taliban soldiers who are allegedly members of Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda organization. Passing through small villages on the way, the thought occurs, not in any way original, that life somehow goes on, despite decades of war and a 4-year-long drought and crushing poverty and deadly disease. And that life, to our eyes, is a fascinating visit to Old Testament times. In between pockets of humanity where regular people struggle to grow things and make things and raise their children, there are half a dozen fronts in this stagnant war, with control over a couple hundred yards here and there shifting every few months. But over the entire course of the war, the Northern Alliance has been losing steadily and badly. And with the recent assassination of their legendary leader, Ahmed Shah Massoud, whose hawk-like features peer out from every truck and every home, hope for victory over the Taliban was almost gone. The attention of the world has breathed new life and reportedly new equipment into the effort. Americans are warmly welcomed here.
We'll have the remainder of Don Dahler's report behind the battle lines in Afghanistan when we come back.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Toyota.
Reinvented Camry. One look, and you're going to want one.
Look, I know Circuit City's doing this expo thing, but we're busy. Get what you need, we're out of here. Agreed?
Yes.
Kevin!
We know how you feel. It's Expo 2001. 30 days of non-stop demonstrations of what's hot and what's next in electronics. September 30th through October 31st. Circuit City, we're with you.
Wednesday, why is the only factory in the country that produces anthrax vaccine not producing it? Barbara Walters goes to the source for answers. 2020 Wednesday.
Dude, roughing it in the wild to win big bucks? Take the Ingalls $1 Million Safari Challenge instead.
Match the safari animals to win big. We'll be giving away thousands of free products and cash prizes. $1 million winner is guaranteed. Take the Ingalls $1 Million Safari Challenge.
This week, Jose Olé mini burritos, 2 for $5. Pop Secret microwave popcorn, $1.19. And Gwaltney spiral sliced half ham, just $1.79 a pound at Ingalls.
The Civic from Honda.
Hey guys, can you help us? We need directions.
It comes with an extraordinarily well-insulated cabin.
Why is it so hard to meet chicks anyway?
The window! Hey!
I do not know.
Amazing, but true.
While supplies last, get special APR financing as low as 3.9% for 36 months on 2001 Civics.
In the rugged terrain of northern Afghanistan, the opposition forces known as the Northern Alliance battle the Taliban daily. ABC's Don Dahler tried to get a first-hand look at the alliance's front line. Here's part 2 of that report.
The general tells us there's too much fighting where we were hoping to go, but we may be able to get into another part of the village.
And this place is the village of Zarkamar.
This is where we wanted to go.
Yes.
Where's the Taliban? Where's the enemy here? Right. And the enemy is here, and we can go.
We can go here, and the enemy is in this place.
So it's not too dangerous to go here.
At the edge of the front, with artillery and rifle fire audible in the distance, we abandoned the vehicle and set out on foot.
This village that we just walked by, are there people living there?
No, just 2 persons.
Just 2 persons?
Yes, 2 persons.
Everybody else
living.
left because
Yes.
it's too dangerous?
Yes.
Everybody except the Alliance soldiers, whom only months ago wrested this village from the control of the Taliban.
Could you ask them how Did you ask him how old he is, the young one here?
چند سال هستی میگم باشم
16 ساله.
16 years old.
16 years old. And the gentleman next to him?
این دیگه چند سال هست؟ 18 years old.
18.
The Quran says, even in jihad, the lives of the innocents must be spared. But innocence itself is the first casualty. As we near the actual front lines, the alliance soldiers we pass are still friendly and curious, but there's a harder look in their eyes. This is the place where the killing and the dying happens. And when they tell us how to avoid snipers when crossing an open area, we listen.
One time.
So this is Zard Qamar, or what's left of it. When the Taliban relinquished it a few months ago, they set fire to anything that would burn. Basically, everything except the mud walls.
You see?
That White House is Taliban?
Yes, behind this.
Those buildings behind the White House.
Mohammed Naeem is the local commander in charge of Zard Qamar. We asked him about the reports of Al-Qaeda fighters in the area. Yes, it's true bin Laden soldiers are here, he said, at this front line and also at other front lines. We have some prisons, one in Panjshir and others. We captured about 100 Pakistanis, Sudanese, Chechens, and Chinese. All of them belong to bin Laden. Another dash through Sniper's Alley, and we start the long trip back. With our backs to the steady popping of gunfire and the booms of Katyusha rockets, a comment comes to mind the late Afghani hero Masood made sometime before he was killed. The resistance doesn't have to win the war, he reportedly said. The alliance only has to survive long enough for the Taliban to self-destruct. It's always the invader that loses the will to fight. I'm Don Daler for Nightline in Hojabaudin, Afghanistan.
And Don Daler joins us now from northern Afghanistan. Things must have improved a lot over these last few weeks for the Northern Alliance.
Well, they say they have. They're actually very, very happy about the U.S. airstrikes, even though it's hitting their ravaged country itself. They've received material from Russia and possibly Iran. We cannot confirm any material from any other countries such as the U.S. But also they say that the U.S. has been softening up Taliban forces, tank emplacements, that sort of thing. They're holding off on making an offensive, they say, until the positions are soft enough for them to advance across the lines.
And do you have any sense of what their strategic goals are?
I do. They tell us that they are actually going to go for the small villages first, take the countryside. There is a key city to the west of here, Mazar-e-Sharif, which has a lot of importance to them. They had it, they held it for a number of years, then they lost it. The legendary Uzbek general Dostum actually has that city reportedly surrounded. That will be one of the larger targets that they're going to go after.
What about Taliban defections? I know they say that they're getting them. Have you seen them? Have you seen any evidence of it?
We've been trying to confirm that. A spokesman for the Northern Alliance, Abdul, has said that 40 commanders from the Taliban have brought 12,000 soldiers with them, simply crossed the lines and switched sides. We have not been able to confirm that, but it is not unheard of in this part of the world. The general I just mentioned, Dostum, is one good example. He was actually a Soviet commander towards the end of the war with the Soviets. He decided, you know, the winds of fortune are blowing the other way. He defected, joined the Mujahideen, and now he's fighting against the Taliban.
Don Daler, many thanks. Look forward to seeing your next report. When we come back, Osama bin Laden's promise today of more terror.
Tomorrow's the big event. Are we there?
The work is there.
Excellent.
But it's not here.
Not here?
Not here. We have a glitch.
A glitch?
A glitch.
New York's files are garbled. The servers in London are down, and everything from Asia has just plain vanished.
Vanished?
Vanished. You know, a glitch.
So no pitch. Well, what do we do tomorrow?
Discuss our global capabilities.
And that's when it hits you. You are so ready for IBM.
It seems like only yesterday. When I started skating at 8 years old, I never thought I'd experience the thrill of winning a medal. With all the great memories has come another thing I thought I'd never experience, the pain of osteoarthritis.
Vioxx is here, a prescription medicine for osteoarthritis pain. With one little pill a day, Vioxx can provide powerful 24-hour relief. Vioxx specifically targets only the COX-2 enzyme, a key source of arthritis pain. People with allergic reactions such as asthma to aspirin or other arthritis medicines should not take Vioxx. In rare cases, serious stomach problems such as bleeding can occur without warning. Tell your doctor if you have liver or kidney problems. For more information, talk to your doctor about once daily Vioxx for the relief of osteoarthritis pain.
Perhaps my biggest victory is to be able to plan my day around my life instead of my pain.
Ask your doctor if Vioxx is right for you. Vioxx for everyday victories.
Baby's heartbeat's strong. Good. BP's fine. Well, I think he's ready to come out. Everything looks great. We'll induce in the morning.
Oh, no, that won't work for me.
Sears Days, a sale so big it only happens twice a year.
I've got to record his birth. I've got to fix up his room. I've got to lose weight after he's born. So, no, sorry.
Big savings you want on the top brands you need or might need soon. Only at Sears. Where else?
Good morning, America. It's a brand new day. Fresher and livelier than its competition. Good Morning America scores. Do something good for yourself. Good Morning America.
So, how's the food here?
Great, Mom. Pizza every day.